Very good. All right, good evening and welcome to the Board of Education meeting for USD290. It is January 13th, 2022. Welcome to everybody joining us in person and also via stream. We'd like to call this meeting to order. We'll start with roll call. Please say present when your name is called. Chris Cunningham.
Present.
Julie D'Andrio, present. Kelly Graves.
Present.
Susan Moore.
Present.
Melidia Payne.
Present.
Glendy Spiegel.
Present.
Harold Wingert.
Present.
We have 7 board members tonight, so we will go ahead and stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, at this point, is there a motion to adjourn sine die so we can elect board officers?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hand. And that passes 7-0.
All right, well, that puts me in charge of the board meeting for just a little bit. Certainly, the reason that this is occurring is, for one, our current board president has chosen to resign her position as the board president. We'd like to thank Julie for 3 years of incredible service as the president for our board, and excited for the opportunity for somebody else, but certainly want to say thank you for your dedication to our students, staff, and community. So thank you very much for that. With that, we move to agenda item 3.01. This is the resolution to establish the election of board officers. This is not really how we vote on the board officer position that is open as the president, but is the authority for the board to create a board president. This is something that has to be done each new year as we come on. So this is a formality in the process, and then we'll get to open conversation regarding the board presidency. So is there a motion to establish election of school board officers? So moved.
Second.
Motion has been put on the floor and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Now to the election of the board president. At this point, the floor is open for any conversation regarding board president for the 2022 year.
I'd like
I
to
would-
nominate Harold Wingert,
Go ahead.
Okay,
President.
I would like to second that.
it's a nomination on the floor, second by Julie. Any discussion before we move? Mr. Wingert, have any issue with being nominated as board president?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, with that, it goes to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. With that, we move to 4.01. Harold, congratulations. Welcome to the board presidency. And we'll extend a motion from somebody to adjourn sine die and let Harold preside over the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Any conversation before we go? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. At this point, we'll probably ask Harold and Julie to go ahead and change seats.
What if we don't want to?
Well, it's all a part of the
All
fun.
the way it goes.
Okay.
It's the first thing you got to do.
Absolutely.
Yes, there you go.
Got,
Congratulations,
Thank you,
Harold.
thank you.
You're welcome.
take your name tags.
Okay.
Take your name, please.
Oh,
You
yeah.
don't want to be Julie for the rest of the night?
You know, if that's what we gotta do, that's what we gotta do. And, you wanna swap
We might
nameplates?
confuse people if we don't swap them, right?
You think they notice?
Maybe not.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, welcome, Mr. Wingert.
Oh, I gotta put
Raise
you
your
down.
chair.
Got it right.
I gotta put mine down. We should just swap chairs.
Oh, dear.
Oh dear.
We're good.
We'll swap chairs next. Okay,
Okay, we're at 5.01, sir.
okay. So election of 5.02, election of board vice president. We'll entertain discussion or a motion.
I make a motion that we, or nominate Chris Cunningham.
Second.
Oh, you do it.
Been moved and seconded to nominate Chris Cunningham. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Congratulations, Chris.
Thank you.
I guess we should have asked you if you wanted to.
We didn't ask if you.
No, you don't ask that question.
Yes, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
All right, so Harold, as we go into 6.01 and approving the agenda, there was some conversation amongst board members with me about our January 27th board date falling on the chamber banquet night.
Yes.
And some want and desire for our board to be able to participate in the chamber banquet. So if the board wants to have that discussion, we need to amend the agenda to have the discussion about January 27th board meeting.
And we would put it,
I would put it at 10.01.
10.01.
So if we want to do that, we need a motion to amend the agenda and a vote to do so.
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded that we amend the agenda to add 10.01 to discuss our January 27th meeting. Do we have any discussion?
10.01 OHS.
Yep, that's what it is. We'll amend it and it'll come in front of that.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, now we need to approve the agenda, right?
Yep, and so just board members, if you refresh your screens, you should see it on your agenda at this point.
Okay. If parliamentary procedure serves me well, we need now a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to 7, consent agenda. Dr. Cobbs, would you like to talk about the consent agenda? Anything
Yeah,
you
there's
wanna
nothing really crazy with the consent agenda. The only thing that I would add is that we had some great donations. Again, want to thank Colin Anderson for his donation, Randall Boots for their donation. Kalmar of Ottawa donated several $1,000s again towards the STEAM bus, and Olathe Medical Center has continued with their donations to our school district. Just want to call them out and thank them for their support of our students, of our staff, of our community overall. So they're on the consent agenda, more to draw attention to their donation than anything.
Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, we're comments from the public. Julie is pointing to, I think we have one. Oh, I got to read this whole thing? Okay. Parents and taxpayers of USD290 who desire to address the board on topics related to the board work are welcome to do so at this time. Speakers are requested to limit their remarks to no more than 5 minutes, to appoint a spokesman if the concern is a group concern, and to supplement verbal presentations with written reports if necessary or desired. Public comments critical of individuals are not acceptable. Please note, the board will listen to the public comments but will not respond. The board may direct the superintendent to follow up at a later date on questions asked or concerns raised. We have one speaker, Sandy Marler.
Just make a note on it, give it to Brian.
Hi.
Okay.
My name is Sandy Marler, 3947 Eisenhower Road. My husband was not able to be here today. My husband's Bernard Marler. I'm sure you guys have all seen him up here. But I wanted to point out that he has spent the last few months asking for the board to rescind the current COVID policy. The in-school testing is not doing anything to curb the spread. We now know masking does not curb the spread. This new variant is 140 times more transmittable than previous variants. You can't stop it with masks. You can't stop it with tests. You don't have the authority to quarantine individuals. It is here, it has been here, and will continue to be here regardless of what is passed by the board. That's the bad news. The good news is that this new variant carries less severe symptoms. In addition, everyone has the ability to get a vaccine should they so choose. We have treatments that completely alleviate symptoms. We are not where we were when this policy passed. We have a lot less, if any, unknowns. The measures, while intended to help give children and parents choice, has merely turned into an intimidation factor. Wear your mask or you will be held from school. Since we now know masks are not preventative, and the virus is so transmittable that everyone is going to get it, this policy remains solely as a measure of control. Trust me, we know you have the control. The question is whether or not you should be applying it. The current information suggests that you should not. The impact to our children thus far has been much more significant from policy than the virus itself. I ask that you stop testing and make masks optional. If the concern is that having a less restrictive policy may lead to less funding from the federal government, the board is challenged with a financial decision versus the best interests of the children. While that shouldn't be a challenging decision, I understand it will be. I beg that you make the right one. Please free the children from their masks and testing requirements because it is the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that the only,
That's the only one.
do we have any other written comments? Okay. Moving on to 9, we have OHS store presentation. I believe Mrs. Whitaker is making a presentation.
Good evening. Noah is passing a little gift to each of you, to each of the board members that the students in the graphic design class made. Dr. Cobbs, I don't know if we made one for you. I'm just being real. I think they only made them for the board members, so I apologize. So you'll have to pass that down to Mrs. Graves. Sorry. Mrs. Fisher greatly apologizes that she can't be here with you all this evening. She is at home, and so I'm going to kind of fill in for her. But really, this is Noah McGinnis. He is one of our seniors, and he is one of the leaders that have brought this idea to my office to start a school store at Ottawa High School. We are always looking for ways to make sure that we are building those work-based experiences, not only out in our community, but also within the walls of Ottawa High School. So this is a fabulous way to do that. This will bring not only our graphic design pathways together, but also our business, our marketing, our finance, our webpage design students. It will really bring all of our pathways together. And I believe you guys have been working with down our manufacturing pathways as well, correct? So I'm going to turn it over to Noah, and he is going to talk a little bit about what they hope to do. And then, do you want me to pass these items around for them to kind of look at while you're talking? Or okay, sounds good.
Hello.
How you doing?
First thing I want to state is that we have been working on this for about half a year now. And the only issue is that we don't have a lot of kids working down Fish's pathway to help. Oh, jeez. But I'll just get away. But I just kind of blanked. I wasn't expecting that. But our idea is that this will be a huge collaboration across a lot of different pathways through the school. So not only will woodshop, metals, a lot of different graphic design and web page design classes come together, but this will generate wealth that we can put back into those certain pathways so that they could purchase more materials and tools that they can use. What you're passing around now are a few examples of what we'd have in the store. Just applying like the power clone and school spirit to some items. We'll definitely have shirts, different accessories, phone cases, pop sockets, stuff of that nature. Oh, yeah. So we use a laser engraving machine to laser engrave the wood. And that little patch of denim right there. And those That, yes, we did laser engrave that and apply super glue and whatnot. But we already have a lot more projects that the whole media and tech class has been working on. And, you know, she was sick, so she was like, Noah, come on. I have the flu. And so I was like, I guess.
Andy, if you scroll down to that last slide, because this is some of the t-shirt designs the kids have done, they really are also kind of wanting to do some personalized orders. And so it's not intended to take business away from any of our local entities, but we do have every now and then people reach out to the kids and they want something homemade by our students, and they rather the kids design it and be the ones that are the crafters of it. And so they would hope to be able to open it up just for some small personalized orders. If you know Mrs. Fisher and her students very well, they like to take a lot on their plates, and so we've had a lot of discussion about just having good conversation that if we do get your graces to continue looking into this, how they're going to kind of manage and mitigate those orders and make sure that they're not taking on too much. Do you want to talk a little bit about, because we don't really have a great brick and mortar place for the store, kind of some of those thoughts behind how we might display everything and where the store might be?
So what Miss Fisher talked to me about is that we don't really know a set in stone location or how we would actually sell the items, whether it be during games, during Cyclone Hour, whether it be mobile or something that we would install. We just need, it to actually be passed, but, and, what was I going to talk about? Yeah. This would be a good way to give kids some job experience, like actually handling money. And another thing is that working with credit cards, because until they actually get a job, they don't have experience with that. So having like some sort of Apple Pay device that we could use with the store instead of just handling cash, I feel like that would be a good way to give kids some experience, because the only thing that we really have right now is concessions, and I think that's really it, is just concessions. So I feel like this would be good job experience for students.
So for some of you that don't know, Mrs. Fisher and I had started a conversation similar to this a number of years ago, and it started after I went and did a accreditation visit with Fredonia, and Fredonia had a laser engraver machine that did some things, and then we took a trip someplace, and they not only had the cube, which a lot of people know what I'm talking about over there in terms of the cube, but they also had the first renditions of these kind of laser engravers, and we're talking about how schools can utilize them to envelop applicable skills, real-world skills with our kids, and connect them to the core content and curriculum for the benefit of the school. And so as we kind of started seeing those, Kelly Fisher and I began having some conversations, and ultimately with Mrs. Whitaker, we wound up purchasing an engraving device. From that, they have taken this and morphed it into this idea of look at what we can accomplish. So it was initially we could build some pretty cool things for our school, and we've turned it into the power of kids being able to design, being able to create, being able to sell has become something far greater than what we had initially envisioned with the process that we were utilizing. And so now it just really comes down to there's no action on this tonight, and just kind of bringing it all in. But what's really happening is not a lot different than what we were talking about with the bank, and that the education of our kids is beginning to transition to something different than classroom learning. It is truly experiential learning. It is about entrepreneurship. It's about getting kids to think differently about their learning, to be able to create and be able to design and really put their ideas out there and see what works and what doesn't work, what is interesting to people, what is interesting to themselves, right? So there's all of these things that go along with it in a controlled environment in which we get to help them facilitate the ups and downs, right? So it goes along with a conversation that we had today with the president of Ottawa University and the president of Neosho County Community College and Paul Bean at FCDC, in developing a small business incubator, right? And part of this was that a lot of the young people coming out of schools, whether it be high school, community college, or university have great ideas but do not have capital to start small businesses. Here's an opportunity for us to help kids expand knowledge and understand how small businesses operate, to see if there's interest in their small business. And we can utilize then, if we ever want to partner them with FCDC and the Small Business Incubator, maybe there's growth beyond that. But this is the first step for us in getting there in true real-world application. And Noah, I applaud you for your presentation. I think this is going to be awesome. I'm really excited about the things that you guys have already accomplished. And I know that when we give Mrs. Fisher a little bit of free rein to do something, it's probably going to be a little bit crazy, but it's going to be awesome, right? It is going to be awesome. So.
He's horrified.
I am. She is scary.
The next steps are, Mrs. Fisher and I spoke about, just like we did with the bank, we went and visited a school that had a pretty good model of that. And so the next steps is, I've talked to Mrs. Fisher about getting some students and going to Baser Linwood. They have a mobile store because they too kind of had that spatial issue. And so getting the kids out there to see that. Mrs. Moore has shared lots of documents with us because we need to get familiar with sales tax and all of that good things. And so those are kind of our next steps to be able to get this moving and shaking. And I think it's awesome that our seniors are going to be able to help us get this started and leave a mark, hopefully, at Ottawa High School for students to come in the future. So I appreciate you very much, Noah.
Thank you.
Any questions for board?
For us?
Are you making these during class hours, or is this, it's not an after-school club or something?
It is media and tech. It is an hour that you have with
Okay.
Ms. Fisher.
It's
Yeah.
an actual class?
Yeah. It's
I
a
didn't know,
classic-
since C-Tech and everybody's doing a little bit of everything, I didn't know if you all get together after school, or...
No, it really, the collaboration happens during the day.
Yeah.
And so her class periods are spread out through the day, and then same thing with our other pathways. And so a lot of our juniors and seniors that are in internships, they're able to kind of leave that classroom and go down and talk to Mrs. Kemp when they need to, or they bring supplies down to Mr. Kochik's kids, and then they collect them when they're done. And so they're able to do that within the periods of the day. I think that's the biggest advantage we have by having that Career Tech Ed Center attached to our building. I've shared before that a lot of schools I've been at, it's been somewhere else and you have to ship your kids away for part of the day and you lose out on all of those connections and experiences with them. And by having all of that in our high school, it just really does open up the avenues of collaboration and the things that we can do during the day tied to those competencies and really give the kids way more. Noah talked to me a lot this morning about all the hands-on experience that this is really providing, and it's beyond the book, and they're learning every single day just different facets of, I can't tell you how many failed projects they've made, right? I mean, just trying to design something and print it, and they're like, holy cow, the whole hallway smells because they burnt the wood, and whatever that looks like. But they're able to do a lot of that during the day with one another. And then Mrs. Fisher and Mr. Kochik and Mrs. Kemp, they do a lot of collaborating on Fridays during our PLC times. In the mornings before school, they're always talking kind of about where they are with different projects with the students.
Doesn't the welding shop, they make something like hay bale rings or something?
Yes.
Other thing
yes.
that could probably be
You could
incorporated?
ultimately funnel it through the store if you wanted to.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we have the CNC machine too, Chris, down in our welding area. And so the CNC machine is another thing. I don't think you guys have dabbled into that too much, have you?
No.
Mrs. Fisher's talked about that here recently because we can also collaborate with our welding students to make things with our CNC machine that can be sold as well.
Yeah, if not all of our board members know what that is, maybe the most apparent thing that they've done recently would be if you drive past the teen park down here, the whatever wall that they have, the graffiti wall down there. There's a metal, I think it says Goppert Teen Park across the top of it. That was actually designed and cut out through the CNC machine by our ag kids. So ag fabrication, and then donated, I think, to the city in some fashion in partnership with them for the teen park. So just lots of different things that our kids are doing to be involved.
What's that?
Didn't they do
Yeah,
that too?
oh yeah, this was from the
Yep.
CNC machine as well.
Yep.
Absolutely.
The denim with the little cyclone symbol on it, how did you do that? Like, will the T-shirts be screen printed, or what do you, I don't know what equipment you have.
We use a Cricut machine to imprint designs on whether it be denim, other materials like that. But when it comes to like wood and that Rock, I don't really know what that is. She never really explained that to me, but that's where the laser printer comes in.
Okay.
And
Yeah, because I forgot you guys use the Cricut a lot, don't you?
we do.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they use 3D printers, and then we are able to do small t-shirt orders. Mrs. Fisher has explained, like, we wouldn't be able to do like an entire school order of getting everybody a t-shirt. We would still collaborate with Front Row Sports and things like that, but they can do small apparel orders that they could sell in the store and offer to students and like at the basketball games and things.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for that great presentation. I'm excited to. Next.
I had like a day of prep. Like it was a little bit less than a day because she called me and she's like coughing on the phone. I was just like, try my best. I tried, but yeah, I think that's about
Good.
it.
Yeah, you're perfect.
Okay.
Thank you all so much for giving us an opportunity to come and share that with you, and thank you.
Noah, thank you very much.
Thank you,
This is
Noah.
really good.
Do you want me to take this?
Thank you.
I appreciate you, sir.
Okay, 9.02, board reports. And board reports is a time that if you've done something that you'd like to report on. And so, anybody have any board reports?
I don't think we've had any.
I think there's really hasn't been a whole lot that's
Okay,
occurred at this
so
point.
since we're just getting fired back up, probably not been a lot, so we'll move right on to section 10, OSH course guide presentation.
If you update it, 10.01 is now the board meeting conversation.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's do that again. Let me update.
You lost your server.
Oh, I lost my screen. Okay, so technology is doing great. So 10.01, we discussed earlier about the need for a board meeting. It's also the chamber banquet that night. We were talking about doing a work study session that night. So one concept is we can still do that, or we can move that off till February if you want to cancel that meeting so people could go to the chamber banquet that night.
Yeah, and just so you all know, typically the Board of Education sponsors a table at the chamber banquet in part to give back to the chamber and all their support for schools and students in our community. They did ask me yesterday if we were still intending to do that. I told them that I would let them know tomorrow, depending on what the board decided tonight in terms of this meeting. But there has been some conversation amongst board members about wanting to be able to participate in the chamber banquet. I would say that if we cancel the board meeting so that we can do so and we continue to sponsor a table, those of you that would be interested in attending, please let me know so I can make sure that we get reservations for everybody and we can go from there. So if we do intend to cancel, we just need a motion to cancel the meeting as it's currently slated that we would have a board meeting on that night.
Discussion?
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion out of respect for the chamber banquet that we cancel our meeting so that way what of us want to attend may be able to attend.
Motion is on the floor to cancel the January 27th meeting.
Second.
Been seconded. Any discussion?
I have a question.
Sure.
We were going to discuss capital plans.
Yep.
Does us putting this off a month keep us from doing anything in the summer?
No. The capital conversation is really about what's going to occur 2, 3, 4, and 5 years down the road. Most of what we had planned for capital discussion in terms of our expenditures this year has already been discussed with the board in the past. And there are no reasons that we need RFPs out right now, so we should be okay. We'll be okay.
Are we planning to, to just push this to February and
Yes,
reschedule
it'll
it
be-
for the?
Yeah, we'll do
Okay,
it on the February meeting.
thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now, on to OHS course guide presentation. As
As they're coming forward, I would tell the board, the guide itself is a very extensive document. It's like 80 pages long or something like that. There are not, these are the only changes. We do not have a clean copy of the guide yet. Typically, we would if we would approve it. But the same guide was approved last year. I think what we're going to ask, since the new guide is not completely finished as of yet, but we know that these are the changes, that we recognize that these are going to be the changes to that guide. And
Yep. Everything else about the guide is staying intact. The only thing we are doing is collaborating with Mrs. Kemp and her webpage design students to really work on the formatting. We get a lot of feedback from our families and our students that it's a very overwhelming document. We have gotten it down a lot. It used to be about almost 100 pages 4 years ago, and we've tried to narrow it down and help it be a little bit more of an understandable document for students and families, because really it's meant during enrollment to help guide those choices and decisions that kids and families are making about the courses that they're engaging in. And so part of what Mrs. Kemp and her students are working on is helping format our pathways, and so that it is more easily understood for parents and patrons. What are those introductory level classes? What are those technical level classes? And then what are those application level courses within each pathway? Right now, it is just a bunch of words, and it's very hard for people that maybe have limited background knowledge in that to recognize what exactly does my student have to take in order to complete a pathway. And so that's what they're working on. And then what we brought to you are just the very few changes that we would like to make. The first three that you see we have a brand new band instructor, Mr. Brett Butler, and he is doing a fabulous job with our students. Now that he has been able to come in and kind of figure out what those goals are for marching band and jazz band. And Andy, can you scroll down one more? Because I think there's one more there in an advanced band class. He has just reworked the wording in those descriptions still to make sure we're including in band, marching band. The kids do pep band and they do concert band as well. He has had a class in the past we've offered beginning band, and we don't really have a lot of students at the high school level. We have 1 or 2 students that engage in it. So that third course is actually an advanced band class that Ottawa High School has offered before. It's been prior to me, it might have been since Dr. Cobbs was the principal there, but that will be an opportunity for our students that really are serious band students to be able to have a period with him, to get some of that one-on-one attention, to really work on some of those competition pieces if it fits in their schedule. Right now, the kids do that during cyclone hour. They do that before and after school with him, but if their schedule allows, it will give them that opportunity to take an additional band class. And so he has brought that to you all through us as one of the additions. And then the last class that I'm going to talk about before I turn it over to Mrs. Tharp, our college and career specialist, to talk about our pathways. This is a really exciting opportunity that we hope to gain your support in. We've had Cyclone Heroes, which would be where our general education students go into our life skills class, and they collaborate kind of as, it's more than a teacher's aide, it's like a one-on-one support for those students. It's kind of fallen by the wayside over the years, and we had one of our teachers, Mr. Gutierrez, he's a social studies teacher, he came to me with a group of students, and they got this idea from one of the Lawrence high schools are the ones that actually do something like this, and what it would be, we want to call it Cyclone Heroes, and it would be a way to take our life skills students, and they would go to Mr. Gutierrez's room for an elective with some of our general education students, and they would team up, and it's really a class that would be about inclusion, it would be about just spreading kindness throughout the building. One of the goals that they would like to do is be able to run like 2 or 3 big events throughout our school, just to spread that positivity and really build the culture and the climate of our building. Some of you might know one of our students, Delaney Murphy, she had said that I could share with you all that she is extremely excited about this class. I think she has already signed up for it, whether you all approve it tonight or not. But she is really excited because she sees it as an opportunity for her to collaborate with her classmates to really put some positivity in our building. And so we bring that to you. We were able to work with the high school in Lawrence to see how they code that and what would be best for our students. It would be open for 9th through 12th grade students. It's a course that kids could take more than 1 year if it fit into their schedule. And I know Mr. Gutierrez has a lot of big plans for what he could do with that class kind of as they get settled and they work through that. A lot of interpersonal skills would be taught as well, and those are some of the standards that he would be utilizing to guide their activities through that course.
So Heroes is not a new idea within our district. I will tell you, it was one of the most powerful classes that we offered at a time, and for whatever reason, it is chosen to go some different paths. But the opportunity here is really about mentorship. It's about making sure that we can provide access to things that we haven't provided access to in the past, or maybe typically people wouldn't be able to participate in at times. This is an incredible opportunity for our kids, and what I think, again, is the most powerful thing is that this was brought back by our kids. And this isn't an adult idea. This is an idea stemming from kids about wanting to make sure that we are a very inclusive environment in our building, and that we have an opportunity for kids from all different backgrounds and needs, abilities, skills, whatever it happens to be, have the opportunity to work together and go to school together and define the culture of our building together moving forward. It's a pretty awesome idea, and
Exciting.
really excited about what it might be able to offer us.
And it does fit well into our schedule. Right now, Mr. Gutierrez has a hour of the day that he does credit recovery. And just to be honest, I'm kind of always excited to look for ways that we can minimize the amount of kind of periods of that we have. We have ways for kids to gain credit recovery throughout the school year as well as at summer school. And anytime we can put a great class in front of our students and gain another elective opportunity, we're just really excited to have those conversations. I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Tharp, and we would like to recommend a course that would actually allow us to add an additional pathway. And then there's a couple other pathway changes that have kind of come down the pipeline that Mrs. Tharp is going to share with you all.
Good evening. We would like to add the Teach Train pathway. We would only have to add 2 courses. The first course, Teaching as a Career, would be added next year, and the following year, Teaching Internship would be added. You can see the course descriptions on the document. We believe, with the labor data and the other information brought forth by the state of Kansas recently, that besides the early childhood pathway, having a teacher trained pathway would help our district grow our own, so to speak. And so we're very excited to be able to add this. Again, the majority of the classes we already teach, they're already in our other pathways, so it would just be adding 2 classes.
For those of you that don't know the kind of the development of this process, the early childhood program that was run by Mrs. Tharp for years and currently Mrs. Waymeyer has always produced great educators. Some of the best teachers in our district have spawned in that class. What we've recognized is it doesn't meet everybody's desires, as it's predominantly early childhood and elementary level. And there are some opportunities for us to really grow secondary instructors there as well. We have some really great kids that want to be teachers, and we've worked really hard to try to draw them back to our district, and we certainly know that the longevity that we have for teachers coming back to their hometown is far greater than those that choose to live in other communities. So this is a huge step in the right direction at a time when we know that we're going to be seeing some shortages of educators over the course of the next few years, to really begin to build that process for keeping our kids in our own systems, being able to help them understand what the great teaching programs in Kansas are. As an example, if we were to help them work through what it would take to go to Emporia State, then we may also be able to have some conversations about them coming back to our community to do their observation hours, to do their internship hours, to do their student teaching, and ultimately put them under contract as they're doing their student teaching with us, and retain them as they move forward. So really, again, great opportunity for our kids.
And Mrs. Black would be our instructor for the Teach to Train course, and so we've worked with her closely through this process to make sure it is something that she felt comfortable instructing through the competencies and offering our students. And I can tell you that she is extremely excited to hopefully have this opportunity to really dig in deep with some of our students. We had several students graduate last year that are in college right now to be secondary teachers, and we didn't really get to provide them a great experience because they were in elementaries, because they were in our early childhood pathway, and that's kind of where the competencies push us to take them. So this would allow us to get those kids at the middle school, to even to pair them up with a high school teacher and just really give them a different opportunity. So thank you for that. And then the last thing on there, I'm just going to have Stella talk a little bit about the little comment we made at the bottom. Andy, all the way at the bottom, there's
Out
just
the
a
way.
little thing in red. Yes.
If you know anything about KSDE and Career and Tech Ed, they love to change things. And every year, there's at least 3 or 4 pathways that undergo review by business and industry and post-secondary folks. And so what usually happens is they ask us to change names, course names. They ask us to change codes because they've come up with a new code. And so that's what we're going to see. A lot of that is just behind-the-scenes stuff that Kim and I do in order to make Skyward and the mapping system for the state meet up, and so we don't get flagged with anything. So you'll see some things like that. So for example, in Mr. Menifee's pathway, the application level class was called Researching Trends in Transportation. Now they want to call it Work-Based Learning Transportation. So there's just,
We'll have some of those. They really start popping up right now is when the state starts sending Stella emails. And so we might have a couple course changes. We'll take care of that, but we want to be transparent with you all, that if those things come down the pipeline, that it's the Kansas State Department of Ed and CTE asking us just to change the title of the courses.
because all the pathways are due March 1st to KSDE in order to get approval, and so that's what teachers are working on right now.
Does anyone have any questions about any of the courses for us?
Thank you for just bringing the changes and not the whole thing.
I've learned that over time, that you do all appreciate
Well,
that,
it
so.
works really well. We appreciate that. And also for all your hard work and always in getting this done. I know it's a tremendous job.
Stella does an instrumental amount of work with our CTE teachers and all of our department chairs to make sure that we can bring this to you every year, and I appreciate her more than she knows.
Thank you. And we know that our students and parents would like a new format.
So you said this wasn't everything. So are you adding stuff that you haven't?
No.
No, everything that's in the course guide is intact from last year. These are the only things that we would be adding.
The only thing that's the unknown yet is that as the state makes changes while we're going through the enrollment process, they will change the name of a course, they will change the course code of a course, but the competencies are there and they remain the same. So you just may see the name of a course change, but nothing within the course would actually change at that point.
And all the other courses that were in our course guide last year are staying.
Okay, because I know, like in art, the metals class, there's no pathway for them, so.
Correct.
Yes.
Is there a way to add that all in,
Well,
or no?
The fine arts, they do not qualify for a CTE pathway. We have started, and the first program to have finished it is Miss Miller and Drama, and we call those unfunded pathways because we don't get .5 funding from the state of Kansas for those. But we have determined a setup very similar to CTE. She has her introduction, her technical, and her application, and so she recognizes those students. It's just, for us as a district, we just don't get those extra funds. And the
Nor
other-
is it recognized by the state.
No, yes.
Yep.
But we're working with our fine arts teachers, though, to create
Yes.
those, and then we can choose to recognize those as a district, as an unfunded pathway. It just wouldn't go with all of the other CTE paperwork and some of the things that we get when the state tracks how many pathway completers we have. If we do when we get our unfunded pathways in place, they just won't count towards those numbers.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Are we taking action on it?
Yes.
We are taking action. Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the course guide as presented for OHS.
Second?
Been moved and seconded that we approve the course guide as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to 10.03, school calendar. Dr. Cobbs.
All right, so you guys have all been provided the calendar multiple times. We've been talking about it for about 3 months now. Lots of discussion in and out and around from the calendar. There were 3 options that were provided. You have been given data as well as it was shared with parents, I believe. After a teacher questionnaire as well as a parent questionnaire that was sent out. And ultimately, the results of those questionnaires came back in terms of, from a teacher standpoint, option 3 was about a 2-to-1 favorite. About 66% of our staff was in favor of calendar 3. Ultimately, what calendar 3 is calendar that starts us a little earlier, finishes us a little bit later, but has, I think, 3 5-day weekends embedded throughout, as well as a full week off at Thanksgiving. From a parent standpoint, it was really kind of neck and neck all the way through. Calendar 1 and calendar 3 were about 36%. Calendar 2 was about 26%. So really, when it comes down to it, each of them were about equally identified at about a third apiece. Calendar 1 is the same calendar that we have right now. It is just on corresponding dates for next year, but everything would remain the same. Calendar 2 moves a couple of PD days into the first semester, but in essence, everything else stays the same. Calendar 3 is the one that has distinct changes. Mrs. Whitaker and I met with some students at Ottawa High School to talk about the calendars in general, and ultimately this was the calendar that created the most conversation around it and the excitement amongst our kids, who really talked about what's happening over the course of the last 2 or 3 years with anxiety and the things that they deal with in school, predominantly fed by this current pandemic and the things that are occurring there. And we're really excited about some opportunities to have some breaks in there to recharge and not have to have long spans of time in which it is constant in terms of their academia. So these were the 3 calendars that were presented. I know that we had conversations regarding 2 other options. The reality of those options is that at no point in time is our community really ready to engage not only in that conversation but in the implementation of such drastic changes. These are still basically within the parameters of our current calendar. When we met, I have a site council that meets monthly as well. In their minds, this calendar was the best calendar option for our students and staff and community as well. So in terms of calendar 3, so those are the 3 options. I think it's prudent that we take action tonight as I continue to get phone calls about when we're gonna make a decision on a calendar. I'm amazed at the number of people that are organized enough to start scheduling family vacations a year in advance. I certainly am not capable of doing so, but many people out there are and are trying to be able to do so with regards to what the school calendar will look like next year. Any questions for me?
I just don't know if we're ready for calendar 3 yet, I know you say everybody was 60% on that, but I just don't know with everything that is changing so much, if we're ready to make yet another change. But that's my opinion.
I would second that, and it's a little misleading, I think, because calendar 1 and calendar 2 are so close to being the exact same option. I think that by having those 3 options, we actually split that vote. That would have been if the question had been remain with the current calendar model or move to a different model with the extended, however you would phrase that. If you add the 1 and 2 together, with staff, it's nearly 50-50, and with parents, it's overwhelmingly in support of the current calendar model. So I also am in favor of continuing with the current calendar model.
I like option 3. I like that people are excited about it and that our staff is excited about it. And I think those longer breaks and that week off at Thanksgiving is really nice. I'm also open to calendar 1, but my preference, when I look at it, just based on the things that people are wanting to do, I like 3 better.
I agree with you, Julie. I think 3 is a good option, especially since we talked about it with staff and parents could vote and students got input.
As far as calendar 1 versus calendar 2, my memory is foggy here, was it 2, you put out number 1, and then staff came back with their recommendations, and that's how calendar 2 came around?
Ultimately, all came back because of staff recommendations. So there was option 1 that was out there, and as we started looking at it, people made conversation about, it would be nice if we had Thanksgiving break off for a week. It would be nice if this could occur. Really, what created option 2 was the notion of trying to get more PD stacked in the front of the year, so that teachers would have that training for the majority of the year. And that's what ultimately developed that idea. And yes, it was created from feedback from teachers, as were all of them.
Okay, thank you for that.
I think working parents won't have those same days off, and will have to get extra childcare, which will be a lot more difficult to plan their lives, because it's kind of more the elite that get to take lots of vacations here and there. I think the majority won't be able to. They'll just have to deal with childcare.
I would tell you that the caveat to that is that they also won't have to pay for childcare for days going extra into the year or starting the year early. So the actual number of days are the same. There's not more school days or less school days. It's certainly a valid point, but you're also going more days in May and more days in August at the beginning of the year. So you're just spacing them out. And now I think it probably is worth noting that it may be more difficult to find childcare in the middle of the school year than it would be otherwise. One of the conversations that did occur with high school students, and I was appreciative of our high school students having this conversation with us, is that many of them indicated that they wanted to help find ways in which we could take care of that, whether it was put more information out there about high school kids willing to cover and do some daycare things for kids, or to work with ORC to provide options during those days, which our high school kids could participate in. Obviously, those things would come after the fact, and not all of the work going into trying to put that together for a calendar that then wouldn't be supported by the board if that were to be the case. So I think we have some kids that are interested in working to develop some programming with entities throughout our community for those families who couldn't find childcare during that time. And we would certainly help facilitate that conversation. But it's,
Mr. President, I move that we approve calendar number 2 for the 2022-23 school year.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded on calendar number 2. Any further discussion? All in favor of calendar number 2, please raise your right hand. All opposed, please raise your right hand. Motion carries. Calendar 2 passes.
all right.
Resolution number 10.04, resolution 41.
Okay, so we now have to, because of Linda and Shanda's exit off the board and the introduction of Glindy and Kelly, we need to address some of the vacancies that we have within the board-appointed programs. The first is the Professional Development Council. This is one that we don't typically see our board members attend a whole lot. It's usually anywhere from, and Amy can probably help me, 15, 20 minutes, and they're all done via Zoom now. The purpose behind the Professional Development Council is to make sure that all of our teachers have access to the things that they need access to in order to ensure their continuation of licensure. So it is associated with KSDE. In essence, what they do is that this group identifies professional development that's occurred, whether or not it meets the guidelines of the state, applies points to it. Those points are then submitted in a transcript to KSDE. What the purpose of the committee does is they say, do we approve of the points? Yes or no? And that's really the gist of the meeting. This is why it takes 15 minutes. The people who really do the work are the building representatives. They go through and make sure that all of the PD meets the requirements of the state. They put it on the agenda. The PDC, the council, simply approves what's on the agenda, and then answers questions should they arise. So it's really pretty simple. They meet monthly. They meet via Zoom for about 15 minutes. It's an easy one if anybody wants an easy one.
Does somebody want to volunteer for an easy, fun, 15-minute Zoom call with Amy and others? Doesn't that sound exciting?
It is important.
I would love.
It is important.
It's
Julie has stepped forward.
Julie's going to do
Put me
it.
down for the 15 minutes.
Put Julie down for the 15-minute fun Zoom call with Dale. Would somebody like to make that a motion?
Mr. President, I motion to approve Julie as the board representative to the Professional Development Council.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Before Julie can change her mind, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, motion carries. Wow. Congratulations, thank you, Julie.
Good job, Julie.
All right, this one may, actually, Harold, I'm jumping ahead of you. Let you go ahead and move to the next agenda item.
Agenda item 10.05. Dr. Cobbs, would you like to read what that is?
Yeah, so this one may take a little more time to have some discussion. So the board appoints a representative to each building, and ultimately those persons participate in the site councils of the buildings, are there to address concerns or questions that may arise from staff. I mean, Harold did a great job of working with Garfield teachers this year around some concerns that they had, and we put some meetings together. It doesn't typically happen. In your 6 years, was that maybe the first time that you've ever had to do that? So it's atypical for that to need to occur, as typically our administrators are able to facilitate some of those discussions. But this was really about board decision and making sure that our teachers felt like our board understood where that group of teachers was coming from. So currently, the building reps are Julie at OHS. OMS was Linda. That is now open, but I know that Melidia has expressed interest in moving to OMS. She's currently at Lincoln. If she were to move to OMS, that would create an opening at Lincoln. Harold is currently at Garfield. I know that he's open to transitioning to something else should somebody want to be at Garfield. And Sunflower is open as that was vacated by Shanda. So right now, the only one that is definitive, I think, is Julie remaining at OHS. So I guess we could start with OMS. I know that Melidia has expressed interest there. Is anybody else interested in board rep at OMS?
Okay.
Okay?
I mean, if somebody else wants it,
We'll make one total motion and
Yep.
we'll get everybody taken care of. Okay, which does leave Lincoln open. Is somebody interested in being the board rep for Lincoln? Don't everybody jump at once.
It's a good building. You'll have a good
Lincoln's
time.
pretty awesome.
Would it help to say when they meet? When do you meet?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we can work a site council. The majority of what you're going to do is via site council, which may meet monthly or every other month, depending on the needs that exist there. Typically, it's a lunch meeting. You guys doing lunch, so it's usually like 11:30 to 12:30. They'll provide lunch for you and have some discussions about what's going on in the building. Mostly, it is intended to inform you all about what's going on, but also to give you some opportunities to provide insights to the direction of the building as well. And there
at
are other
Garfield, you got-
parents and people that are involved in that process.
At Garfield, you got pizza.
Yeah.
I'll
I
be
mean-
thinking.
All right, so we got Susan at Lincoln.
All right, Susan.
Thank you, Susan.
All right. Kelly, I know you and I had talked a little bit about Garfield. Are you interested in Garfield at all? I think
Yes.
Okay.
Harold be willing to transition out of there. So we'll put
Very
Kelly at Garfield unless somebody else really wants Garfield. And that leaves Sunflower open for anybody that wants to jump into Sunflower. Which really at this point leaves Glendy, Chris, and Harold.
Well, with Chris and
Do you
Harold
know when that
on
meets?
executive committee, I just.
I don't. I can get information. And honestly, if you can't make it to every meeting, it'll be okay. It'll be okay.
They're really nice, too.
What'd you say, Julie?
You want to try, Glendy, and we'll see how it goes?
Take on more than your executive role.
Okay. All right, so what I have here is that board representatives will be Julie at OHS, Melidia at OMS, Susan at Lincoln, Kelly at Garfield, and Glendy at Sunflower. That sound good to everybody? Harold, I think we're ready for a motion if somebody wants to make it.
Would somebody like to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Before we have any more discussion, so nobody can change their mind, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign, motion carries. All right. We are now down to 10.06. We need one more negotiator.
Okay, so the negotiation team does a lot of work. This is a pretty robust position. Last year, I think we had to meet like 15 times. It was a lot. And some of those meetings were 3 hours or so. So there is some expectation here, in part because the negotiations process cannot go forward unless we have two board members there to help approve any decisions that are made. We can go through the motions and we can believe that we've come to some sort of resolution, but in terms of the actual negotiating groups saying we have come to a TA, a tentative agreement, there has to be at least two board members there. So Chris and Melidia currently on that team want to make sure that they intend to stay, and from what I understand, you want to go to negotiations training on next Tuesday, the 19th, or
It's Wednesday.
Wednesday. I'll make sure I get you both taken care of. So we'll keep you both going there. We need a third person. Julie and I had discussed negotiations a little bit with some interest. Is anybody else interested in participating in negotiations?
I mean, you made it sound so exciting, 45 hours of
Julie, if you're
negotiating.
still interested, it sounds to me like it might be yours.
I'll do it.
Okay, thank
right.
you, Julie.
So we would need a motion and we would need action on that.
So do I hear a motion appointing Julie to join the two other negotiators, Melidia and Chris?
So moved.
Been moved and seconded to add Julie to negotiator team. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 10.07, Board Representative to the Governance Relations Network.
All right,
Would
so,
like to recommend that we have the president do it.
okay. I will tell you all that I've learned a great deal about this over the course of the last few days, as I knew nothing about this program. It's actually changed the name. It's now called Kansas Advocacy. And it's through KASB, and ultimately what occurs, and I will just tell you, most districts do appoint their president. So ultimately what they do is that the person that is a part of this advocacy network is participating in legislation at KASB. And so KASB is ultimately going to communicate with you about things that are on the floor that they may need board information on. So they may contact you at some point in time to come present. They may contact you at some point in time to just listen to what they're doing and try to make sure that the direction that they're advocating for is the way that boards really feel. At times, you will get some updates on things that aren't public yet to be able to provide insight. There's newsletters and all sorts of things that come out. So again, it's a fairly robust program. They have changed the name, but it's all through KASB now. And ultimately, its driving factor is to make sure that school boards have a voice in the legislation that is occurring within Topeka. But it is something that typically board presidents are participating in. Melidia, I know that you had expressed some interest.
Yeah.
So I think I told you that I was going to do some research because I didn't know much about it.
No one else had volunteered, so, and I know we have to have one, so I was just.
So that's kind of where we're at. So
And if you needed to query the board, you can send information through Ryan to us to say, what do you think, or, for the board and
Yep.
those type of things, which we haven't been particularly active in at times and probably need to be more active in at the
Okay.
state level, but.
So do we hear a motion for 10.07?
Looks like it's you, Harold. I move it.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to add myself to this new named advocacy. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, don't vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign, motion carries. All right, we're going down to personnel. You've all been provided a personnel report. Hopefully, you've had a chance to look at it. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded to accept the personnel report that you've been presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, moving right on. I think we're to announcements.
All right, so a couple of things. Some of you may not know that we actually have a bowling team, which is pretty awesome. They're doing some pretty awesome things. We had our first win with our bowling team last week against Spacer Linwood. So it's one of the, if you see Mrs. O'Neill or Mr. Harris after, is this just our second year of bowling? Yes. Yeah. One again, there we go. So they're pretty fabulous, and they're doing some pretty great things. I do think it's important to recognize that we are able to do this at minimal cost because of our partnership with Fusion Alley and the people who run that, and Dr. Frank and all of the rest of the group. I think there's 4 or 5 of them that are the ownership group. But they have, Bob Hayden, I think, is in there. Betty Berzer, I think, is in there. So certainly want to identify our appreciation for all of them that, again, continue to provide things for our kids. So as much as we congratulate our bowling team, I also want to thank the ownership group at Fusion Alley for helping us provide that opportunity. Would remind everybody that we have no school on Friday.
Time out.
We have school on Friday. No school on
I was
Monday.
going to say, are you announcing
Tomorrow's
something?
Friday. Yeah, we do have school tomorrow. No school on Monday in celebration of Martin Luther King Day. This month is Board Appreciation Month, and I will tell you that Tracy and I had some plans to do something on January 27th, but we will push that back to February, and hopefully you'll be okay with a belated recognition for the work that you do for our school and our community. So we'll do that in February. I wanted to let you know that in the update, you will see some things. You may hear it come out of the city before you get the update from me, is that they have approved a TIF district around Price Chopper and Orchulans to actually sidewalk the area around there. Again, what the TIF means for us is that their taxation is basically halted for improvements. So we'll receive the same levy of tax towards schools, but they will, over a course of time, they will earn those things back, and then we'll see the jump in property tax based upon that. But they will have some reprieve for a little bit, but it will not diminish the taxation that's currently existing. The state approved, or will approve, most likely as it goes to the State Board of Education here very quickly, changes for sub-protocols. If you talk to KSD, I don't know how excited they are about this, but they knew that they had to begin to do something. So they have reduced the age requirement for substitutes to 18. This is pretty substantial. I think previously it was 21, and you had to have 60 college hours of credit in order to apply for a license to be a substitute teacher in the state of Kansas. It is now 18. You have to have a high school diploma. Again, this is not something that KSDE wants in terms of, hey, look, everybody, come and be a substitute. I think more than anything, they're saying, schools, if you cannot find quality subs, you have this in your hip pocket. This is not who you should be drawing from the deck the first card. Right? Do everything that you can to continue to develop a good sub pool, but when you get into difficult times, here's another pool that can be created. One of the concerns that I know that we have discussed is identifying that a recently graduated high school student has the opportunity to now be the instructor for their peers. That is concerning, to say the least. So we know that we have some. We talked earlier about the pathway for teachers. We have some kids that have already reached out to us that are going to be excellent teachers. They're going to be phenomenal teachers. We are going to do everything we can to not place them in positions in which they will be persuaded by their peers. So middle school, elementary, a lot of those things I think we can build capacity with. I really don't want a 19-year-old kid teaching senior English. I think for obvious reasons. But we'll work through those and continue to see what happens. But I did want to let you know that that was updated. FCDC came out with some isolation quarantine changes, and we're still awaiting some other changes that we know that are occurring, and you were updated on some of those today. But the ones that we know are for certain is that in the December 28th, it identified that isolation needed to occur, and the exemption took place for anybody who had previously contracted or been positive for COVID, and your exemption was 30 days. They've now extended that back to 90 days. The other piece was around the time frame in which the 5-day isolation or quarantine started. So again, on December 28th, it indicated that your 5-day window started on test day as day 0. The following day after your test was day 1. So really it was 5 days after your test date. The new guidelines coming out today indicate that that 5 days starts on your date of symptoms. So onset of symptoms. So the first day you have symptoms is day 0. The next day is day 1, and it's still the 5 days, right? So this will impact us minimally for the most part, but it is something that has changed after we just put out new quarantine guidelines and after the county put out new quarantine guidelines. So that is something to consider as we move forward. Those are still not FCDC's, the CDC's guidance for schools, which have not been released yet. And so I'm sure that once those are released, we'll have further guidance from KDHE and further guidance from FCHD, and we'll go from there. As we get ready to adjourn, I cannot thank our nursing staff enough. We are one of the few schools who has not shut down. We are one of the few schools who continue to operate at peak capacity. We are one of the few schools that have been able to navigate this fairly regularly. And in large part, that is due to our incredible nursing staff and all of the associated staff that continues to work every day with our kids to make sure that they can be at school, to make sure we're communicating effectively with parents. They are incredible. They have been overwhelmed in the last week. I think everybody has been overwhelmed in the last week, but they are an incredible group of people, and I cannot thank them enough. If you happen to see one of them over the course of the next few days, the weekend into next week, I know that they would very much appreciate a thank you from our board members as well. They've done an awesome job. We couldn't do this without them. So with that, I've got no more announcements.
Okay, moving on to 13, adjournment, so that we can go home. We need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, stay here until you change your mind. Meeting adjourned.